Oh, we got a poppin' cold open today, Kateline. We got a lot to cover. I don't know if the Holt heads have seen the news, but we got huge news Lester Holt-wise. And that's just not our podcast. We're talking about the actual man himself, Lester Holt. Kateline, can you share with us what's happened in these last few days? The whirlwind of the last few days of us trying to process this.
Lester Holt is retiring from doing the news to focus more on what he's truly passionate about, Dateline. Now, what does this mean for us? Does this mean that he's going to become a host? And if so, then who will introduce the show? Will he do both? Here's me with the body at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah. The way he worded it in his announcement, it 100% sounds to me like he'll be replacing Murph Dog.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Murph Dog. This is more confirmation that he's done on Dateline, and I just hope he's safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think this is all? It's all making sense.
It makes sense.
Lester's no joke saying, "I'm going to be one of the peeps. I can't wait to tell you these stories." So then we also have to contend with the fact that the joke and awesomeness of our name is that a guy says I'm Lester Holt at least twice every episode. And that's always been pretty funny to us.
Especially because he's not in the show.
Yeah, exactly. That was the funny bit, was that this guy's just at the beginning and end, but he gets his name in twice. And now, is he never going to say I'm Lester Holt?
Man.
We don't know. So we're shook to our core over here in Holtland. And I'll tell you this will wrap up the other thing I got to tell you. Experiment over. I think we've upset the algorithm, Kate, because when I got rid of the gunshots and stuff, the numbers went down.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So, and also, shout out to Holthead Beth. She said, "Don't you dare lose those gunshots or scream." And good news, Beth, I'm putting them back. Because I think when I poke the bear being the algorithm, it's like, I'm going to do whatever the opposite is that you want me to do. Because he's trying to say, you can't control me, ILH. Mm-hmm. You can't do it. So the gunshots.
The algorithm is a man?
What's that?
The algorithm is a man.
Yeah, I regretted it as soon as I said it. So I'm glad that you caught it and we're jumping on it. Let's say he's, I did it again. I guess I do consider the algorithm a he. It's just easier for me to hate a dude, I suppose.
There you go.
What do you think? Is that all right?
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah.
I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Holtheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Kateline.
We got a big Dateline today. It's for one of Fatty, but it's a pretty big case. The Delphi murders. I've been calling it Delphi for years. How about you?
But you're from Indiana.
Yeah, I know. I knew it was in Indiana. I've driven through Delphi, no doubt, because when they say Deer Creek, that was the name of the music, like the outdoor concert arena that we had back in the day, where I saw Farm Aid and Dave a bunch of times, and Fish and Trey Anastasio solo tour.
Oh, God.
I mean, that was formative K-Money that you would have hurt your eyes rolling.
Yeah.
At me, Kate. I feel like you'd have been like, I don't got time for this guy.
I don't have time for any of that music.
Okay, what about Willie Nelson? I met him backstage at Farm Aid.
Okay, that's cool.
That was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. My buddy hugged him. I did not hug him.
No, don't hug people.
And I got Dave's lighter. Somebody stole it from his dressing room. And then Dad Money found it and smashed it and threw it in the woods so I wouldn't be able to use it. Here's a peek for you, Kate.
Ugh.
Okay, where were we? We are here to discuss a brand new Dateline about a pretty popular murder, I'd say, the Delphi murders. Were you familiar with this case, Kate?
I was. I've seen, I don't know how many other shows have done this story, but I feel like maybe it was a 2020 or 60 Minutes or something, or there was like a documentary at some point. But I definitely saw it, and I knew the story. I saw all of the videos and photos that I remembered all of that, as well as like the suspect, but I didn't remember the talking heads, so that was new.
Yeah, this is one of those cases, it's like a smaller version of Gilgo Beach, where there are documentaries out there that were released while they were still trying to solve it, right? And like, this happened in 2017, and that kind of now, all those docs are worthless to me. I have no interest in watching an old doc that I know more stuff than the doc does.
Come on.
What's that? You would watch that?
You don't know if there's maybe something in those docs that you didn't pick up on or didn't remember, or isn't it fun to see like where people are at different stages in the investigation and then like what they think happened versus what actually ends up happening?
It is in theory, and I would get that enjoyment out of it if I watched it. But when you start the doc and you're like, I could use this 45 minutes to watch another episode of Evil Lives Here.
Yeah, you're right. Life is short.
And Kate, life is short. Is life too short for you to watch another episode of Evil Lives Here? A show you kind of introduced me to.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I was watching it, and I texted you about it, and I didn't like it. And then you now love it. So I gave up after the first episode.
Yeah, not enough talking heads for you.
No.
You need some variation.
It's one person talking the whole time.
It gives a fun insight when it's like a psychopath who's been a psycho since birth. You find out the weird stuff they would do as a kid where it's like, well, we can't like arrest him. He's 6, but he straight up drowned that cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff like that.
I mean, that stuff is always so depressing because it's like, yeah, you can't arrest them, but you can put them into some kind of program.
You think? In one of them, the doc told him, well, it looks like you're going to have a tough time bringing him up.
Paul was put through, I don't know, I think 49 different tests. He said, I'm pretty convinced that you have a hyperactive child here. Okay, what do we do? He said, you be long-suffering parents.
He's got attention issues. Bye. Get out of here.
Okay.
Like that.
But what year was that?
80s.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about 80s crimes all the time.
I know, but that would not happen today.
True. I would hope not. And there's one last thing I got to talk about with Evil Lives Here. It's low budget as hell. But I might, Kate, I'm threatening you now, I might watch one that's good enough for us to do on the Patreon. Because there are some lulls to be had, including at the beginning of every episode, it'll start with white text on black and say like, Bob didn't know his sister Carla was so crazy. ... New line. But there had been signs. And then all the words will fade out except for signs. It'll kick it there for a minute. I mean, that's some pretty heavy stuff, right? You're like, what is going to happen? You know what else they do? They do a lot of like, this is the first time so-and-so has talked on camera about this. I'm like, I don't
Ooh,
care.
you got the exclusive.
Anyway, we'll kick that to a Patreon in the future that Kate will love. Today, IMDb description. 2 teens' murders in Delphi, Indiana gain global media attention. Police reveal video of killer moments before death. All right. Oh, hosted by AC. How'd you like AC in this?
She had some new hair.
Wait, damn it! Damn it! I'm literally bringing it up to talk about it, Kate. There's something very new about AC. I even went back to her last new episode to confirm. Do you want to say what it is?
Well, she had lowlights put in.
You talking about the gray? I mean, she's introducing some gray in there.
No, she has the under part dark.
You didn't notice the gray?
Are you sure that's gray and not just really bright blonde?
I mean, look, I guess I'll trust you on hair stuff, but I watched it at this point 1 billion times based on my performance last episode.
Kurt, did you watch this one?
You know what, I did.
And I was shocked, and I liked it. I thought it looked good. But I would definitely say she was introducing gray. And I'm just like so deflated you didn't notice that. You noticed that it was darker at the bottom?
Yeah, I noticed the lowlights. I didn't notice the gray.
Okay.
But
well, I'll send you some stills, and you can confirm or deny.
I'm glad she's embracing it, if true.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's up to her. Do what she wants. She's going to look good.
Here's Andrea Canning with A Walk Through the Woods.
All right, so it's a warm day in February, and the kids have the day off school for an unused snow day. 2 girls, Abby and Libby. How old are they? Like 7 and 9? Or like, they're young... They're like preteens or something, right?
No.
What's up? How old do you think they are?
No, they're teenagers.
They were teenagers? No way.
Yeah.
One of them was not. Come on.
Kurt, they were like...
What, Kate? What?
They were 14, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry.
Because at one point, AC says, I have a daughter who's their age.
You're absolutely right.
I'm a mother of 5 girls. I have a 14-year-old and one that's about to turn 13. Exactly the ages of Libby and Abby.
Because that part jumped out to me because you know some people can hate it when AC talks about her kids, right? Some people do not care for it. We love it. I mean, I did. AC was getting hella emotional in this episode today. On both sides of the spectrum. Wasn't she doing it? Well, she was doing a lot of AC stuff.
Oh my gosh. He had broken into their house.
Had broken into their homes.
I think when teenage girls are murdered, it's very upsetting for people with teenage girls.
Do you think it was a good move for her to bring that up? I like it when she does that. Do you have a problem with it?
I do think it's kind of annoying because it's like it falls into the category of that's somebody's daughter out there. That's someone's wife, mother, daughter.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm being hypocritical because I'm so biased towards AC. Because when other people say I've got a daughter and this hurt, I want to go like, I don't have a daughter and I'm not happy about this death either, dude. But there's something about the way AC says it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I guess, you know what? People are an onion, Kate. So that's just me, man.
Love is blind, Kurt.
Okay, they had a sleepover, they were having their fun, and then Libby's older sister Kelsey says, going to see my boyfriend. And Libby says, whoa, you gotta drop us off at the trails. And now the trails were on the outside of Delphi, and it was like a couple miles of like wilderness and stuff. And there was a bridge, an old bridge there that people would go on. So they get dropped off. Hours pass, and they don't hear anything from Libby, which is weird because she's afraid of the dark. Their grandma's starting to get worried, and she alerts Abby's family and also the police. The police are on it. The police are aware of it, but they're not really jumping on it yet. That is until the older sister, Kelsey, checks Libby's Snapchat. And what is on that Snapchat, Kate?
Libby had posted hours earlier from that bridge that everybody hikes to. And there was a shot of her crossing this bridge. And the bridge is like an old train trestle that's no longer in use. I don't even think it has the actual metal track there anymore. It's just wood. It's very rickety, very dangerous with no guardrails or anything. So this is like a thing to hike out to the bridge and dare your friends to walk across it. And
Yep.
I know that if I were that age, I would have been on that bridge too. My friends and I would have been partying on that bridge all the time.
Same. Yeah. My buddies would be there first, and they'd talk me into it. I probably would have been scared at first. But one of the ladies on here says that her friend had her senior photos taken on the bridge. That seems like a good spot for it, huh? I mean, that seems like a senior photo location.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah. I mean, for the emo kids, for sure.
Oh, def. I wonder if she had to, convince the photographer to go with her to take the pics, or the photographer had, a long lens from the land. What do you think? You think the photographer was scared?
I think the photographer was on board and out on that bridge.
I gotta stop things here. How'd you know that word trestle? I learned it when I looked up that bridge. Did you know what a trestle was in Jen?
Yes.
Wow, why? What's up? Are you like an old trains person? And I'm just now learning this.
I guess I just know about American infrastructure.
Nice. Okay.
But, it's not the first instance of a trestle that we've seen. That awful accident on that movie set in Georgia a couple of years back, that happened on a train trestle.
You talking about Rust?
No. The one where the camera operator was killed and several other people were injured in Georgia.
Oh, forgot about that. Did that movie come out?
No. Those people are in jail.
Seriously?
Yes.
I bet they're so glad the Rust thing happened, though, because that's kind of like what people talk about when they talk about deaths on sets right now.
Yeah.
They're probably stoked that Baldwin is, in the crosshairs. It's like, oh, take that heat off us. Thank you. So Libby had taken a picture of Abby walking across the train, so they know that they were at that bridge. So this now becomes the focal point of the investigation. They were at the bridge, so it's got to be somewhere around here we're going to find some clues.
Yeah, and they thought, maybe they slipped and fell, or something happened near the bridge where they were still there and just needed some help. They didn't know what was going on, but at least they had a direction to go in.
Yeah, and they look until it gets dark, and they wrap it up. Did I mention Libby's afraid of the dark, too? So Grandma's thinking, there is something going on. But everybody goes home for the night. Mm-hmm. Next morning around noon, the search parties are back at it. They find the bodies of 2 dead girls about a quarter mile away from the bridge. So we've got our victims here. And I liked, this kind of speaks to someone's list. But AC was like, you heard 2 dead girls, you knew it was Libby and Abby. And they were like, in Delphi, there are 2 girls missing. They're going to be the 2 dead ones we find.
Yes.
Kind of like a small town or something.
And when they found them, one of them was naked and the other one was still clothed, and they were right around this tree where one was kind of hidden behind the tree and the other was in front of it, sort of, and they were both covered with a little pile of sticks.
Right.
Their throats had been cut.
Abby was wearing clothes. Libby was not.
So the cops, Liggett is one of our detectives. He's the sheriff we talked to. There's a detective in blue that we talked to that I think was annoyed with AC sometimes.
We didn't rush out and do anything throughout the course of this.
And then there's Liggett. And I'm not giving him all-star award, but there's something that happens later where I was slow clapping old Liggett. Because I was like, thank you, dude. Say that again.
I believe that would have been the first ritualistic killing of 2 young girls.
But we'll get to that. So the family gathers back at Libby's house, and this is a bummer. Their grandma was calling for Kelsey upstairs, but she was saying Libby, and everybody was frozen.
She meant to say Kelsey, but she was saying Libby. And we all just kind of stood there with eyes wide open. None of us said a word.
What'd you think of the cousin or whatever with the braces and the nose ring or whatever? She's kind of cool. It was her friend that took the senior pics.
Right. Yeah, I think I liked everybody involved with this family. Everyone seemed pretty cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is the introduction of the detective in blue, okay? Because he shows up to the crime scene, he's putting the tape on and whatnot, and AC's talking about how people want to know if this was a serial killer or a drifter. My eyes are rolling. It's like never a drifter and stuff. Like, people hate the idea of it being one of them, right?
Yeah, but the cops immediately are thinking like, this is something that kind of does bug me though.
What's that?
Where the cops are like, okay, someone here in town knows something. The killer is probably gonna be close by. And I always think, well, but why? I mean, I'm not saying a drifter, but why isn't it possible that maybe they're from like a town an hour away? Why is it always assumed that the person they're looking for is going to be from their town?
Well, I mean, later Liggett talks about how nobody would know the name of this bridge and stuff unless you lived there.
I always kind of figured that it was someone here or from here that was familiar with the area.
I suppose that would be my counter to your theory there.
But really? You don't think that bridge being as popular as it is, somebody from another neighboring town would know it? It's on Google.
Well, there's pages dedicated to it. I was looking it up. I was trying to make a poster for this baby, and I was just going down the rabbit hole of like, it's where I found out the word trestle. So put that up here in the mind graves. That's good, Kurt. Use that later. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Oh, and I love this quote. This blue cop was realistic when he was like, I said, oh no, I was worried we're never going to be able to meet the expectations that people have for us on this case. And then he says, and we weren't. Good, dude. Own it. Because guess what? You f***ed up.
And I started to think to myself, oh my gosh, we are never going to be able to meet the expectation that people have. And we weren't.
So what's that?
Now, Kurt, as a native of Indiana, can you tell me why this town of Delphi has signs everywhere saying it's the home of the Erie Canal, when the Erie Canal is near Syracuse, New York?
Well, something tells me, okay, wait a minute. There's a Lake Erie that you can access via Indiana/Michigan. So maybe it's a canal off of there. Is that okay for you or no? I know that the word Erie Canal is familiar to me. Okay.
Yeah, it's famous, but it's in New York.
Okay, but what about you think that they're saying they're famous for the one in New York? Come on.
No.
Come on.
But I don't think you can say they're famous for their Erie Canal either, because theirs isn't famous.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have no idea where you come from and whether you guys have cool things to talk about. But as a Hoosier, it's always... There was a slogan of Indiana Beach. It was, there's more than corn in Indiana. It was like a point of contention that there's nothing in Indiana that's famous.
Proving once again there is more than corn in Indiana.
So, like, they grasp at straws, Kate. So I think they're thinking Erie Canal. Nobody's going to fact check this. Kateline will years later, but we're not going to be listening. What do you think?
I don't even think Indiana is known for corn, Kurt.
Jesus Christ.
That's Iowa.
What will you give Indiana, Kate? Give Indiana something. We've got some famous serial killers. Okay, and a famous pedophile named Michael Jackson, of course.
Indianapolis 500.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. We do have, that is very Indiana. So thank you for giving us that.
And you, of course.
Oh, naturally. K Money's birthplace. Great call.
Good, honey.
Okay, so the cops are looking around the crime scene and they find a few things. One, an unspent bullet, okay, which means that it was racked but not shot. They went in the woods with Liggett and had him demonstrate it. Mm-hmm. So they find that bullet, and then they find a shoe, and under the shoe, they find a gold mine that is Libby's cell phone. And who do they send that cell phone off to, Kate?
Right.
They immediately sent the phone to a forensics analyst for testing.
The local news is there, and they talk to Ron Logan because the body was found on private property of someone. And they talk to this guy, and we see footage of it. And they're talking to him of like, I grew up here, or like my kids grew up here. I don't know what happened. But we see this interview with this guy, and they've got a lot of footage of him like walking around the crime scene, right? And now I'm going to go ahead and do it now because I know I'll forget. This is something I should kick down the road, but I'm not gonna. This was almost a BYB B-roll you busted. Because I kept seeing shots of the crime tape, and it was upside down in every shot. And I thought this was Dateline out there recreating the scene. I'm like, dudes, I get it if it happens on day of crime scene. They start upside down. But if you're shooting B-roll, it should not say police scene do not cross upside down in every single shot. Did that jump out at you?
No, I missed that completely. That's so funny.
But I have excellent news, okay? And I went through frame by frame every single time they show a B-roll of tape in the woods, which was at least 10. Okay? Those were all shots they got from that original interview with Ron Logan from the local Indianapolis news station.
My son grew up here. He's been down here when he was 13 years old.
And I say this, that's super cool because not only was it the footage, it was the clean footage. Now, clean footage in TV parlance is there's no graphics on screen. So we're seeing shots that we saw in the broadcast with all their new at the bottom. But Dateline got that clean footage. They got the raw.
I assume it was their NBC affiliate.
Well, of course, but I mean, I still think it's impressive they still had that footage. It's all from somebody who's had to get old footage for races and stuff. Like 2017 might as well be the Stone Ages.
So the cops are the ones who hung that police tape upside down.
Yeah, I guess we gotta if I was Liggett or something, I'd be pissed. But I guess I looked it up. I was like, what if this is a thing that I don't know about? The internet talks about it, but they're like, well, the wind will twist it. Wrong-o. We see where it's wrapped around a tree, and it doesn't twist, it just continually waves. But you can always tell. Anyway, the whole damn thing was upside down. I couldn't believe it. So, a near BYB. And there we go. Okay, so they talk to Ron Logan, the property owner, and then they get a few witnesses. A handful of witnesses that are like, oh, we saw a weird guy walking around a bridge, and we saw 2 girls on the bridge. So they're piecing together the story, and they've got a few people that may have seen it go down. And they talk about, this was cool. Now, AC did an excellent job this episode of planting seeds. And here's the first seed she planted, was that a woman had called in because she had urged her husband to tell the police that he had been there that day. She's just a little tidbit. She just threw that, kept moving. So keep that in mind.
Right.
And one woman had called in to say that she had seen a man walking down the street covered in mud and blood. What are you thinking right now, Kate?
That's our guy.
Yeah. And look, there have been a few near rhymes with Keith. He's so poetic. But this was very rhymey. And it was funny how AC emphasized it. Covered in mud and covered in blood. I liked it.
He was walking along the road covered in mud and blood.
I don't know if hunting is a big thing in that part of Indiana. So you could say, well, maybe he was just some guy coming out of the woods after doing some hunting and covered in deer blood or whatever. But at the same time that the girls go missing, right near there, it's suspicious.
Yeah, especially if he's not, like, if he had, like, a rifle on his arm or something. But I don't know if it's deer blood.
And if he was wearing, like, one of those reflective vests
Yeah.
or hunting hats or whatever. But he wasn't.
No, he's just rocking Carhartt and jeans, which is very much a Indiana staple, fashion-wise. They speak to it in the episode, and I can speak to it, Kate. Not me.
Yeah.
Because you know I'm out here rocking way crazier stuff.
I was going to say, I can't picture you in Carhartt.
Hell no.
You're in khaki shorts and a T-Swift shirt.
Well, or colorful joggers if it's winter. But yeah, def some shorts. And those khakis better be stretchy, Kate. Don't be putting me in some tight khaki shorts. I need some room around the midline.
You need some room for dead ass.
That's true. Now, they do the autopsy. Autopsy reveals that they were killed by a sharp object. There was no sexual assault, but they don't release that to the public. And they also have a photo of they have a photo of a man on the bridge that the cops are pretty confident saying this is probably our killer. But they also don't tell us where that photo comes from at first. What did you think about this photo? People like to say it was grainy and stuff. I don't know. Coming from under the bridge footage.
Sometimes it's just a little blob.
I thought this was a pretty good shot of somebody.
You can definitely see the outfit very clearly. You can't quite make out facial features, but you can tell it's like a white guy and about 40, 50 maybe.
Yeah.
And no beard.
Yeah. And actually, well, I'll wait till the video thing, but...
Police had obtained a photo of a man on the bridge that day.
So the cops are like, if you know anything about this dude in this photo, tell us. So meanwhile, the town is dealing with this loss, and they have like a remembrance at the church. People are lined up out the door. Grandma and Grandpa wait and talk to everybody. And we hear that the town was coming together. Everybody was willing to help, including a local CVS. The dude in the photo department was willing to make copies for free for like the programs of the memorial. So whole town of Delphi's in on this. Let's find this guy. Keep that in mind. Okay. Cops call another press conference. And this is where we get the term bridge guy.
He becomes your prime suspect that you have named Bridge Guy.
Correct.
Bridge guy.
Now, they're confident this is the killer, which seems weird because it's just a guy on a bridge. But what do the cops say that photo is from, Kate?
They reveal that
it wasn't taken by some random eyewitness or even a security camera. Incredibly, Libby herself captured the killer on her phone.
So now they're asking the public for help. Tips pour in based on this bridge guy photo. And I think at this point, they'd also done the math to confirm it was probably the killer, is it was 6 minutes since that Snapchat photo was posted of Libby, I think.
Right.
Isn't that true?
Something like that.
And so, of course, everybody in town is like, oh, this is my husband. This is definitely my ex. This is definitely my brother, blah, 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 blah. And one lady, Connie, calls and says, this is my ex, and here's why you should listen to me. His name's Ron Logan, and he's the guy who owns the property the bodies were found on.
I just told him that I felt that it was Ron Logan that had done this because he's abusive.
So right now we're thinking, Ron Logan looks good for it. And that was definitely the vibe then.
She was adamant because she felt like, he has that exact outfit. He has that exact build. That's him. When we see Ron, though, he seems a little too old.
He does look a little old. And as the cops say, maybe a little taller.
Yeah.
But let's also point out what else Connie said. In that Ron was a major creep. After they had broken up, he had barricaded her in her house and at one point hit her over the head with a crescent wrench. And then 2 other women call in and have the same story. Oh yeah, after I broke up with Ron, I would wake up in the middle of the night and he'd be sitting there watching me sleep.
And he was standing at the foot of their bed watching them sleep.
Oh my gosh.
So this is something that I've said before on the pod, but it's amazing how whenever someone is killed, there are multiple sketchy dudes that could have done it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And this case was really interesting because it revealed several other criminals who were then arrested for other crimes just because this investigation shed a light on what they had been doing. Yeah. But it had nothing to do with the murders of these girls. It's just like, that's how many awful dudes are in this tiny little town.
Yeah, are out there. You're right. Population 3,000.
Yep.
And it's like wherever they throw a stone, they're hitting a pedo, like they're hitting a creeper. It doesn't matter. And another thing that kind of sinks Ron Logan at first is he says, I couldn't have done it. I was at the fish store with my cousin. Now, the cousin confirms this and then immediately calls the cops back and says, okay, I lied. Ron made me tell that story about him and I going to the fish store. And he made me do this before it was released that the bodies were found. So like the morning of or something, he's like, yo, cuz, if the cops call later, if they find 2 bodies, I had nothing to do with it.
The cousin backed up Logan's alibi. But then, 2 days later, he changed his story.
So another reason why Ron Logan's looking good for it. So the cops get a search warrant for his pad. They look in there, and they're taking his truck away and stuff. So he was arrested for driving on an expired license. And this is when they realize, okay, he's definitely not the bridge guy. He's too old, he's too tall. But they were able to book him on an unrelated charge. I couldn't find out what that charge was. Didn't you want to know what that charge was, Kate? What was the charge?
I'm sure it was like trespassing and stalking or something.
Because he gets 4 years for it.
He was very violent with all of these ex-girlfriends.
Yeah. Okay, so the cops are like, this is not bridge guy.
No.
Back to the beginning. And, okay, 5 months after the murder, the cops release a sketch of the guy. And they got this from the covered in mud, covered in blood lady. And what'd you think of the sketch? I mean, it looked like a person. It wasn't like a laugh out loud sketch like we usually have.
No, it looked like it could be a real person. But I don't know how much it helped.
Yeah, I mean, it almost created more problems because, as AC says, hornet's nest time.
Instead, it kicked up a hornet's nest. People were accusing each other on social media with little or no proof.
Now, you thought it was bad before. Everybody's calling in, saying, I know who this guy is.
It sounded like all 3,000 residents of this town called in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I'm going, why do we think it's this town? Why do we think that the person has to be a resident of Delphi?
You want it to be a drifter or a passer through.
No, not a drifter, but it could be someone from a town that's, 50 miles away or whatever.
Okay. All right.
If someone is going to go out and do a murder, maybe they know of isolated trails around the state.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that could absolutely be the case. So much so, even the detective who, I forgot to say, he was on his hands and knees. He was so scared of the bridge.
You wouldn't catch me crossing that bridge for anything.
I walked as far as I could, then I was on my hands and knees.
Even that detective who was scared to be on the bridge, he was fingered as the guy, okay? The news editor-in-chief had to, sign an affidavit that this coworker was in it. People we were interviewing were accused of being bridge guy.
It's wild.
Yeah. These are times when I fucking hate the public. What about you? I just like the calls that come in. It's like somebody has to look into this. Well, in theory.
It's like when people find an image of Jesus in their potato chip.
Oh, yeah.
And they call the news. It's that kind of thing.
Kate, that is so funny you said that, because guess where that lady was from?
Fort Wayne, Indiana?
If not Fort Wayne, Indiana, because I think it was a Seifert's chip. And Seifert's was a local chip brand in Indiana that was made in Fort Wayne. So yeah, so there we go. We got Jesus Chip Lady that was on like Carson or some shit.
Now, what are some of your prize ones on this?
Well, I have a pair of dirty sweat socks
Potato chips, folks, if you just joined us.
Kurt Money, and then the Indianapolis 500. We're stacking them up now. Okay, 2 years pass. Still nothing doing. The family is on the news every year going like, why can't we find this guy? We got a picture of him. We've got his voice. We've got a sketch of him. Why can't we find him? And so 2 months later, after this, on the 2-year mark, the cops decide to try and smoke this guy out. They have a press conference and they're going classic move of like, we know you did it. Just come in and tell us why you did it. Come on. We're on to you. Just come on in, killer. And they also release. This is where they say that it's got to be a local thing. And Kateline's in the background going, excuse me, it might not be.
It might not be.
It might not be. And then, okay, this is when they released the video of the guy walking on the bridge. So now that picture is not just a picture, it's a still from a video of bridge guy walking.
Why did they release the clip of the guy walking towards them, then audio of his voice from later, but then not audio of when the girls first saw him and were saying to each other, is he still following me? Is he behind us? I'm back.
Here's my theory. They did not have a video of the guy walking. I think that right after the murder, they found a picture on the phone and said, oh, here it is. And I think it took 2 years for some youngin' in the tech department to press that photo and go, actually, I think this is a live photo, y'all.
You're right.
We've got 2 seconds with audio and movement. I think that's exactly what it was.
You're right. It was a live photo.
It was totally a live photo. And that's why the video that they had was also crazy. They did some warp stabilizer stuff. You could tell because it was shaky as hell. Mm-hmm. But that it was exactly the duration of a live photo. And they just played it over and over again. Yeah?
And she secretly, I assume, was able to videotape this person approaching them.
They say there's a video clip of 43 seconds, and that's when all that audio happens. My theory is Libby did that while they were being captured, like pressed record in her pocket or something. And I think maybe that's why we didn't see it, because the video is black and the audio is probably really hard to hear. What do you think?
That's probably what happened. It's a good thought.
Cool. All right, this is where the timeline flash forward to early 2020. They're going, okay, we gotta, maybe this is connected to other people that we're suspicious of. So they bring Kelsey in, the older sister, and they show her a list of names. And they're like, anybody on this list of names, do any of these names pop out? And she says, yeah, this guy, Anthony Schatz. He looks familiar. What's Anthony Schatz look like? Do you remember how AC described him?
The profile showed a floppy-haired heartthrob with abs and tats.
So Anthony Schatz is he looks like he's some guy in his 20s, super muscular, shirtless in almost every picture. He looks like a model, very tan, blonde. And this was on their list because he was one of the people they found in Libby's phone that she had been in contact with. And is this where Kelsey reaches out or says that she had reached out to him?
Okay, yeah. So the cops, all this kind of happens concurrently because Kelsey says, yeah, I know Anthony Schatz, because after the murder, I had logged into her socials and saw that she had been communicating with this Anthony Schatz. And I had asked him, do you know where my sister is? Because you were just in contact with her. And he said, no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I'm sure everything's fine. And the cops, but Kelsey sits on this until 3 years later. Mm-hmm. When the cops are like, what do you know about this Schatz guy? And now what the cops have been doing with this Anthony Schatz character, he had already been under suspicion because he had been in contact with a ton of underage girls asking for nudes and stuff.
And he got a lot, unfortunately. He got a lot of girls to send him nudes, but Libby was not one of them. She never sent him.
No, he did ask.
He asked, but she never sent one.
Yeah, which the grandma was pumped. I mean, she was already bummed that she was even talking to him. She was like, once I accepted that she actually talked to him, I want to be like, Grandma, did you see his abs? Did you see his abs?
Floppy-haired heartthrob with abs and tats.
It's very understandable that a guy like that slips into the DMs of teenage girls and makes them feel special And the next thing you know, they're sending very, very illegal photos.
Yeah. Now,
a tale as old as time.
Absolutely.
Age, sex, location. We all did it.
Yep. In 2021, a year later, they discovered that Anthony Schatz is not a real person. And this is where I said,
of course not.
Of course it's not. And that's why I thought there'd be a Z at the end of Schatz, but it's with an S. But of course this guy's not real. So they tell the public, do you know this guy? And they show pictures of him. He's doing all the annoying stuff. And he's like, which car should I drive? And all this. And he's like, he's got the V in the bathroom. And he's doing all the thirst trappy stuff that Instagram is known for.
This male model type with his shirt off and smiling and nice pecs and good abs.
Here we go. This is where it gets interesting. So they discover that this was actually stolen shots and stuff and was actually being used by a known predator named Keegan Kline. And he had been asking for these nudes. And back in 2017, he actually showed up. He got one of the girls' addresses from her. And she woke up to like a fat dude in a ski mask, like breathing heavy, outside her window. They arrest this guy, and it's this Keegan Kline guy.
Which...
Right?
Wasn't AC saying Kegan?
Yeah, and it was right after they had just said Keegan. Cateline, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what I thought. I said, like, come on.
He talked to me. He gave me an interview from jail.
Hi, Keegan. How are you? Did Keegan have any history of violence?
I was confused whether if it was Kegan or Keegan.
Definitely.
But either way, we find out that the photos he was using were of this model influencer who was all the way across the country, had nothing to do with this, had no idea his photos were be using to catfish underage girls. But Keegan is exactly who you think he is. He looks exactly the way you think he looks.
Yeah.
And once again, we have now multiple men who then get arrested for something that isn't the murder that they're investigating.
Yeah, dude gets 40 years.
He's a pedophile.
He is.
You were committing crimes against children.
Right.
You were asking children to send you inappropriate images, correct?
Right. Yeah.
He's also a big liar because he had said, I was in Vegas during the murder. No, he's in Peru, Indiana. Okay? But wait, Kate, we can't skip over who the real guy was. His name was Evan Kowalski, and he was a cop in Alaska.
That's right. And when he went on TV to be interviewed about it, he took the interview from an exercise bike. He's in the gym on the Peloton with the Zoom in front of him.
Even though he looked casual, interviewing as he worked out.
I'm like, dude, how necessary is it that you get in the gym at that time every day? You're on television. Put on a shirt and sit in a chair. What are you doing?
This was, no kidding, this is the thing in this episode I could not wait to talk to you most about, out of the murder and everything, because I wanted to know what was so f***ing important in this guy's life.
Gaines.
That he had to do the interview
Gaines.
On the bike.
Listen,
on the bike.
The gains don't wait. You got to get in there. Idiot.
Oh, what a douche. What a f***ing douche. Now, look, he's on Zoom with somebody who's also on Zoom. This is 2021, so maybe it's still COVID protocol. Everybody's at their houses.
Sure.
But he could have stopped pedaling. He doesn't have to get off the Peloton. Evan, you could stay on the Peloton, but stop pedaling.
It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
It reminded me of that old joke of when Law and Order people are interviewed. It's like, you're being interviewed about a murder. Can't you stop stocking shelves for 1 second?
Listen, I got to get back to work.
Yeah. That was this guy, but to the max. I'm on national television, but I got to get my pumps in. Oh, I didn't care for him.
I mean, maybe that helps his brand.
Soliciting videos from young girls, that's disgusting. And it makes me sick.
All right, so now we're back to square one. This is in 2022, we still got nothing going. And now walks in Kathy Shanks, who gets her due in this episode, certainly. But the cops, boy, are they lucky. Kathy Shanks is a former investigator who just dedicates her time to helping the cops digitize tips and stuff. Again, something that I think that people like us would pay to do. I mean, good. I'm glad you did it, Shanks. But I just... Don't you think what she was doing is like a true crime nerd's dream?
Yeah, although it sounds pretty tedious.
I guess, but I mean, the internet was all over trying to figure out who this bridge guy was. And very annoying about it, too.
And they were calling her a hero, and all she did was just look at the evidence.
Okay, and here was her big hero moment. September 2022. They're moving offices. And Kathy Shanks is helping move boxes of tips. And she sees a box of tips that were from before her time. And she looks through there real quick and goes, wait a minute. Here's this guy that AC planted earlier. Okay. This guy whose wife forced him to call in. Wait a sec. He was there between 1:30 and 3:30, day of the murder. Why don't we know more about this guy? Fell through the cracks. Fell through the cracks.
So something fell through the cracks where this tip did
Whoever
not...
wrote cleared on it, everybody ignored it.
How many times have we seen this, Kate? How many times have we seen this where it's like, oh, it was solved the year of the murder? It was just because someone said it was a clear tip, and it wasn't.
Or it goes in the wrong pile.
And they said that it was a conservation officer had interviewed him. So does that mean he's a ranger or something?
Maybe. Someone who works for, like, the trail?
Yeah. So maybe that's why, because it was marked clear and put in the wrong spot. And it's just like, yet again, solving a crime is shot in the foot from the jump from either laziness or indifference. And it's just such a bummer because it was right there. AC really gets on it too, and the cops got to play it cool. They're like, well, sounds like we know who Bridge Guy is.
This man has placed himself by the bridge at the time the girls were there.
Absolutely.
What did you think when you saw that?
I thought that, that's Bridge Guy.
Because turns out, guy in the note looks just like Bridge Guy. His name is Richard Allen, okay? What'd you think when this guy popped up? So now this is our third main suspect, and this guy, again, we could have had a week after the murder.
I just thought it was interesting that his wife is the narc here. And that she was like, yeah, you know what? He may be my husband, but I think he did that shit. And he was there. And he has those same clothes. He wears that outfit all the time, she said.
Yeah, and what I think it is I'm not sure she thought he was the guy. I thought she was a clueless wife going, but you were there. Why don't you tell him you were there? Because she's thinking there's no way he killed these two girls.
Maybe.
So I think that's how they fell into it, because later in the police calls, she's going, they tricked you into it. They made you do it. But we'll talk about the police calls in a second. Cops look at security footage near the murder site, and they see a black car, and it turns out it's the same kind of car that Richard Allen has. Okay, so that's also good news, that it might be this dude. Were you bummed we didn't get to see that black car?
Didn't get to see the car, didn't get a make and model.
Nothing. You were ready. Car Kate was there going, show me Dateline. I'm going to get it.
I can't put it on my list.
Nope, certainly not. So they bring Richard Allen down for an interrogation, and this is when he says, well, sure, back then I said I was there from 1:30 to 3:30, but actually my timeline is...
He says his timeline was much earlier, like 12:30 to 1 or something, but how would he remember that years later, Richard?
Yeah, and remember that little convo we just had later when the defense comes through with their f***ing bullshit. Okay, remember that.
Sure.
Also we got to mention, it's not revealed yet, but here's another line that AC's throwing. Richard Allen worked at a CVS, and then she moves on.
The man who'd come forward all those years ago was Richard Allen, a 50-year-old Delphi man who worked at the local CVS.
We don't talk about it yet.
Oh, but we caught it. We caught that. What was that, AC?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The same CVS?
Big time.
Okay.
I heard CVS, and I said, ooh, I know what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. First interview happens. He says, I didn't do it. They get a search warrant for his house. They find the clothes that match. He's got lots of knives, and he's got a Sig Sauer gun or something. And the gun is tested, and it's the same gun that the unspent bullet was discharged from at the murder scene.
Right.
Now, this seems pretty cut and dry, too.
Investigators thought they heard someone racking their gun on that video from Libby's phone. Now, with the bullet match, they were convinced it was Allen.
Okay, so the gun is tested. Second interview happens. Now Richard Allen's a little bit more defensive, and he's denying everything, and he threatens. I love this back and forth, because you know how AC's got to, like, pull gold out of these people? And the guy's like, yeah, it was pretty heated, because he was like, he said that I was going to pay for this, and then I said, no, you're going to pay for this.
Good one.
Thanks. Great, dude. Great.
Riveting stuff.
He just made the comment that I was going to pay for this, and I told him, no, you're going to pay for this.
They arrest him, and in Halloween of 2022, they unmask Richard Allen as the main suspect.
They were sure. And on Halloween 2022, police unmasked the alleged killer.
This was the part where Blue Detective was, I think, annoyed with AC. Because she goes, wait, you waited 5 days? Why didn't you just release it? And he was like, global attention? We were forced to. We didn't want to tell you anything.
We didn't rush out and do anything throughout the course of this.
What was the reason, though?
Global attention.
Global attention.
Yeah, he was kind of heated. He was like, we don't rush anything in this case, okay?
Clearly.
Yeah. Okay, and once that name is released, this is when daughter Kelsey says, oh no, Mom, that's the guy who gave us the free photos. That's the CVS worker. Oh.
That was the first thing my daughter thought of
when they showed his picture and said he worked at CVS. She said, "Oh, Mom, he's the one that developed those pictures."
Now that is a bummer for those involved, but on a strictly Dateline level, that's what we call a home run. I mean, that's like
classic.
That's the good stuff. Yeah. I mean, I was feeling them in this app. They're doing classic Dateline shit, and that was one of them.
And AC knows it. Kurt, I think the lesson here is shop at Walgreens. Walgreens doesn't hire murderers.
Good call.
Go to walgreens.com to learn more.
Okay, Kate. Now's when I gotta be cool, calm, and collected, and you're gonna have to talk me down. Because 11 months later, Richard Allen is arrested. He's got a crackpot defense team behind him. And 11 months in, they say, whoa. Hold the phone. Richard Allen didn't do this. This was a sacrifice by a pagan cult called Odinism.
Oh, God. It is never...
I'm sorry, is it 1988 right now?
It is never the occult. It is never Satanism. It's never Odinism, whatever the that is. And yeah, they did say there were some people in the town who practiced this Odinism, but no.
I truly, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in true crime. Whenever a cult or some odd, like Satanism comes up, because it's never, ever been that. Ever.
Never.
Not once. Not even at the height of it in the 80s. None of it was ever real. Ever. And it's still, I could not believe the lengths that they went to talk about this. AC even goes with them out to the woods, not the woods, mind you. And also there's a lot of snow everywhere, so like branches might look a little different than if there wasn't snow.
We should say these are not the woods where Abby and Libby were found.
But they actually take AC out there and talk about how the bodies were placed in a certain way and how like the blood on the tree was the shape of an F, which is a symbol for Odinism. What were you thinking here, Kate?
Odinism, I don't know. Look, the thing that made me laugh out loud, though, was when they said that the sticks on top of their bodies were, like, part of the ritual. When really, it was just Richard Allen being like, yeah, I guess I could try to cover them up. No, you know what? I'm going to give up on that. That's all it is.
Yeah.
We had, sticks that were arranged in a certain pattern. I mean, to me, it's just plain silly to say that these were thrown on there to hide the body.
There were multiple laughs there where I was torn between furious and hilarious because he said, and that was their way of sending a message. And AC goes, well, what's that message? And he goes, well, it's a message that only the person who made the message knows what it is.
Great. Then why make the message?
Great work, guys.
It sends a message to the person that made them and created them.
So what could it have meant in this case?
That it's only known to the person that created the rune.
I googled Odinism, and now some of them are not this. One of the recent Odinism people is believed like that it's like just whitey. It's like one of those people where like it's only white people are allowed, right?
Oh.
And so now I ask you, if that were true, and we had some hillbillies out in the woods, would their sacrifice be two little white girls?
Why would they kill white girls?
I don't think so.
No.
The lady on the defense team was like, you think we just pulled this out of thin air, but like, we had to investigate this. They did not. They did not have to investigate this. I couldn't believe it. Oh my God. And it wasn't an F, by the way. It wasn't an F. Did you see? They showed us a picture of the symbol, right? Like it would have been an F if there wasn't that top stick. It just looked like a stick with two little guys.
But I thought the blood was supposed to be the F.
Yeah, they were saying that it looked like this Odinism. This was from a long lost alphabet called the runes. Right? And they're like, it looked like this alphabet letter that's kind of like an F. No, it's not.
No.
It appears someone used it to create another Odinistic symbol that looked like this, an F.
There's just no natural way that shape gets on the tree accidentally.
Police, though, are obligated to look into this because the defense can say, oh, they had tunnel vision, blah, blah, blah. So they got to waste man hours on this. And they do. And this is where I liked Liggett because he was like, if this were true, this would have been the first recorded case of it ever happening. And that was my slow clap for Liggett. I said, well done, dude.
Slow clap.
Well done, because you're right.
I believe that would have been the first ritualistic killing of two young girls.
Anyway, that was dumb. And now, crime scene photos are leaked somehow. And it's tied, they came from the defense side of it. And what were you thinking there? Do you think the defense leaked it? I mean, boy, did they put a show on that they're very sorry and they didn't do it. Do you think that they leaked those photos?
I don't. I believe that it was that intern or their paralegal or whatever who they had then fired. He just needed money or something. And just by the way the one guy was so upset and said that he had been worried that it would ruin his career and that he hadn't been sleeping, and it was just...
What was your reaction to that?
Deep despair, getting in a fetal position in my bed for days, thinking my life is over, my career is over.
He seemed like the most genuine defense attorney I'd seen on a Dateline in a long time.
I agree. We're talking about the guy in the middle. I didn't care for the ladies' tid, and I certainly didn't care for the guy on the left when he started talking about gun barrels. Do you remember this guy?
Yeah.
Right? When he's like, what would be the benefit? He was one of those, we were talking about smile talkers recently. He was trying to stop laughing the whole time going, why would we do that? Why? Why would we do that?
There was nothing to gain by leaking those documents.
This part is when it starts to come back at him. Judge says, I'm pissed. You're fired. They get kicked off the case. Now they appeal it, and the Supreme Court says, nah, you gotta let them back. So then they went ahead with the trial. Doesn't this seem like grounds for an appeal later?
Oh, yeah.
This worried me.
The attorneys appealed the judge's decision, and the state Supreme Court reinstated them.
Because it's the same judge.
It's too messy, and it already puts doubt on the case, and I could see this. I mean, hopefully he dies before that ever even...
Yeah. Oh, this was the best part, though. After all that smoke blown about Odinism, the same judge says, well, guess what? Pre-trial hearing, you're not even allowed to mention it.
Yep, because it's not real.
And then the judge says you can't bring them up in trial as alternate suspects. That's a blow to your defense.
You know what? Let's give the all-star to the judge. Can we do that? What do you think?
Sure.
Let's give it to the judge for just being like, that's such bullshit. You're not even allowed to mention it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Their whole defense is like, well, he's entitled to present other options because it's reasonable doubt. I'm like, guys, we know the script. Keep moving.
Also, they're not always entitled to that. That's...
Yeah.
A lot of times, they don't get to present other suspects or other things. That's what makes it hard to prove any sort of reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and like, you are much more forgiving of the defense team than me. I kind of let my emotions take over sometimes. But I will admit, it is important to present other options so that you avoid the tunnel vision. I understand they're a necessary evil, but there's a point where you're making suggestions just to confuse matters. Mm-hmm. Just so they can say, well, it could have been this cult thing. And this was a line too far where I was like, guys, wasted time.
Yeah.
We talked to the prosecutor about bad facts.
I think you have bad facts in almost every case.
We heard bad facts from a previous All-Star. Remember her? Ooh, that's a bad fact. I'll play the clip.
Then even the state of Ohio in their closing argument just now had to concede that, you know what he says? You might want to go in. Ooh, that's a bad fact, right?
I like this, though. AC is like, well, how do you explain his behavior? He's never killed anybody. And the prosecutor who BT dubs, if you had asked me if he was the defense, I'd have said yes. Dude has a killer stash, frames, and slicked back hair, and like plaid shirt and blue jacket. Would you have guessed he was the prosecutor?
You're right. He did have a defense attorney vibe to him. Maybe he was a former defense attorney?
Maybe. I thought he looked good, though. I liked the stash, but it definitely gave him a vibe of sleazy.
Yeah. And why does the hair have to be that long?
If he's just gonna...
And if you're in a role, like, if you're a public prosecutor, it seems very unprofessional to have, like, the long mullet thing happening. Just, you can have it slicked back, but, like, trim up the sides and the back. We don't need to be doing this.
I kind of like a little action back there, Kate. I hear what you're saying. I do, but I kind of like a little flip-flop.
Kurt, no.
I know.
No.
Trial finally starts in 2024. This is 8 years after the murders. And this was weird as hell. AC goes, both Libby and Abby's families sat on the same side of the courtroom in a show of solidarity. I'm pretty sure one side of that courtroom is for people who support the defense.
That is a weird statement to make. Were their families feuding at the time?
No, they certainly talked about how they're different families, but they were bonded in this. I mean, maybe Abby's family at one point had said, like, why'd you let him go to the trails? But
yeah.
So that was a little weird, but I'm glad that they were working it out and they were sitting on the same side.
They sat on the same side of the courtroom in a show of solidarity.
Okay, another great little bit. I mean, right now, we can agree that old Richard Allen's looking good for it, right? And that's even before we mention that there are 60 recorded times that he confessed to the murder, with phone calls with his wife, phone calls with his mom, chats with other inmates, chats with guards. Richard Allen wouldn't shut up in jail about how he did this murder.
Did he ever say during those 60-something times why he did it?
No, just that he was going to assault them, but then he got spooked by a van passing, and that's when he slit the throat and run out of there. Now, I could not... This was another moment for the defense team to shine because they were... Or the defense team says, well, he was under duress because he is in a really scary prison. This didn't make any sense to me because they were jailhouse confessions that were taped. Okay, maybe he was in solitary confinement, but when he's on the phone with his wife, he's out in the common area. Like, it's not... And there's not a cop there going like, tell us the truth. This would be the least he's under duress. So what the... The defense team also says gun science is not a science, because the one they compared it to was a shot casing, not an unspent one.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Now, I'm calling bullshit on that because if that were true, you could have had it tested to a shot one. I feel like if they did that, they'd find out the same info. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like he's trying to raise reasonable doubt, but he could have fixed that by saying, well, let's get it tested with a bullet that wasn't shot.
But he didn't do that.
No, they would have had that right? Like during the, pre-trial bullshit.
Maybe. This was kind of confusing because they were trying to argue that if you just cock the gun, right? Or it's
racking.
If you rack the gun, it's not gonna leave the kind of impression that could tell you the gun that was used. But that's not true.
I don't get it either, because does that imply that if you don't rack it, when you shoot a gun, the bullet that comes out is the casing from the previous bullet? Like, I don't understand. I guess we're not gun peeps.
We are not gun peeps. And the people listening to this who are laughing at us.
They're laughing their little butts off. That's okay. Have your fun, because I'm about to own the defense team right now. When AC goes, well, he did say he was there from 1:30 to 3:30. And this is where the lady on the right goes, okay, but I asked the audience watching, how many of you can remember what you did 5 years ago? And I'd say, hey, lady, we're not debating that. This is what he said a week after it happened. He changed his story 5 years later. So you're just proving your own point.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Right. By him being like, no, I was there earlier than that, 5 years later. You can't remember that, Richard.
Yeah.
5.5 years passed. Anyone here, anyone listening, who can tell you what they were doing to a specificity 5.5 years ago?
Boy, that was wild. Okay. Do you remember what? So the defense said, oh, he was out there, but he's looking at fish, and also he was looking at a stock ticker on his phone. Okay. What do you think?
Sure.
You think Richard Allen was checking his stocks out there?
I don't know why those are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, like he could be doing both.
It doesn't take more than a second to pull up your stocks.
Yeah.
And then see a girl and then want to go murder her.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't take 2 hours to look at your stocks.
Yeah. Oh, also, in his confessions, he said that he got spooked by a van driving by. Well, it turns out they already have a word from a witness that said, I drove my van down there when I left work.
Mm-hmm.
And the prosecutor's like, only 3 people would know that. The 2 dead girls and the guy who did it.
Yep.
Right? That was good stuff. AC says something in that moment that's going to be on my list. I got 4 items on my list, Kate. Not to like... Anyway, we're almost there. Verdict takes 4 days. This was a little scary, huh?
It seemed like a while for something that was open and shut.
Yeah.
I did it. No, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby.
But he's guilty on all charges. And a few weeks later, when they decide the sentence, he gets 130 years, 65 for each. This is where the prosecutor shouts out Kathy Shanks for finding that clue. And it's like, yeah, I mean, good. Let's direct attention away from the fact that your dumbass cops lost it in the first place. So great move here, Slickster. It was a great move.
Yes.
The prosecutor recognized an unsung hero of the case, Kathy Shank.
Yeah, well done, dude. Let's give it all...
Yeah, we love that redirection.
Kathy Shanks, a great shot of B-roll with her shaking a cop's hand and the cop's trying to pull away. And she kept holding it and shaking it.
Love that.
Shanks.
That's what I do.
All right, let's get to those lists before Mississippi explodes.
Kate's unnamed list. Well, Kurt, it's a small town, the kind of town where things like this just don't happen.
Another big one down the plate. I mean, again, multiple times they kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
This is a small town, so word travels fast.
Right.
Which is great, because I think it's the only thing on my list. I mean, we have the white van, but it didn't give us a make or a model, so...
They showed a picture of it on a computer screen. They didn't even give it a full screen, this is the car.
No.
So, yeah. Well, that was a pretty good one, though.
Yeah.
On to Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
4 items today, and luckily I made them bold and underlined so I won't forget them. Back to the top. The night before the murder, Libby and Abby were watching movies. We didn't hear what movies.
They were upstairs watching movies.
My guess would be Spy Kids, for some reason. What do you think?
Why?
Why not? I'm not going to say it's a movie from 2017. I think it's a movie that they watch on repeat because they were doing other stuff. And like they're 14. I mean, Spy Kids came out 10 years.
They're too old for Spy Kids.
Oh, well, hey, then what's your guess, Kate? What do you think they were watching?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's a list item. A weak one. Not quite as strong as your small town thing. Next up, Lester appearance. One of the news people that they show talking about the case. Oh, Lester Holt.
Police in Indiana are pleading for help to solve a double murder mystery.
Another list item that probably won't happen anymore in the near future. Number 3. AC is like, ask the prosecutor, you didn't say, is this the man that did it? And point to him in court. And she's like, we all see it on TV. That's the man that killed him. TV mention.
Which is what we're all used to on TV, right? That's the big, powerful moment. Is that the man?
Did that happen a lot on The Good Wife, Kate?
A few times.
A few times, okay. And here's the last one. AC says, your big aha moment.
That's a big aha moment, if you will.
Now, of all the things in this case, what do you think she was referring to?
CVS.
No, the fact that in his taped confessions, he said that a van spooked him, and that they have the story of a guy who said, I drove a van down that road.
Something that only the killer would know.
Yeah, we felt that way.
I don't know. You got way better options in here for an aha moment, right? That's kind of weak.
Yeah, that one's negligible.
Yeah. And that's it. So that's 4 for me.
You know what? They were watching Shrek.
Are you saying that just because there's news of Zendaya being cast in Shrek 5?
Yes.
Is that why you got Shrek on the mind?
Yep.
Totally.
That's it.
But I would buy that, Kate. I would even buy it being like Shrek 2 or 3 or...
Yeah.
I mean, none of them are great. But speaking of movies, and real quick before we wrap it up, Kate, if you remember in the cold open, you roasted me because I accidentally gendered the algorithm. Remember? I said he. Remember that?
Yes.
The algorithm is a man?
Yeah, I regretted it as soon as I said it. So I'm glad that you caught it and we're jumping on it.
And I was thinking about it, and actually, you know what that comes from is, have you ever seen Space Jam 2?
Of course.
What's his name? The bad guy in that is called Al G. Rhythm, played by Don Cheadle. So there you go. That's why I said dude.
Okay.
What do you think?
That movie was bad also.
Yeah. Do you think that was worth bringing up an hour and a half into this record, or?
No.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Kateline.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
Bridge guy.